energy, a state of being that in some way, shape, or form will eventually create a situation in your life, whether you be still alive or afterwards, that will force you to face the consequences of the choices that you made, even if that takes you all the way into life review when you leave the physical reality. There is no way to avoid any action that you take or any consequence of any action that you take, because there is no outside, and especially in spirit, there is no longer any sense of separation between you and others. Therefore, everything you do, in a sense, is felt by you, experienced by you, even if initially it seemed as if it was experienced by others. So you will experience it one way, shape, or form, because again, everything you do is happening in your own universe, is contained within your own universe. There is no outside to lose anything in.
So the idea would be everyone goes through life review, right?
Yes.
So everyone experiences the consequences and the effects of all of the things that they've done as a physical being in a particular lifetime.
Yes, it is not a punishment. It is an observation. It is a lesson. But it is unavoidable. Because just because there may seem to be a temporal delay in physical reality doesn't mean you have avoided the consequence. Doesn't mean you have avoided the experience. Everything you do becomes part of the fabric of existence in terms of information. And especially after you leave physical reality, after you expand back into spirit, there is no longer any temporal barrier to prevent you from experiencing the direct consequence of every action you have ever taken, even in physical reality. So you will be facing those consequences so that you can learn the lessons and decide for yourself what you would like to choose after that. This is inevitable and automatic for everyone. It's simply the way existence works, because there is no outside. So you cannot avoid anything, not ultimately. You may delay it temporarily in physical reality, but that's it.
So I think one time you spoke about the idea of like a soul being put on ice in a sense, or if the behavior during the physical incarnation has been especially heinous, that there is a way that you're taken through life review that is meaningful and the person can cope with what they're being shown or experiencing?
Yes, it can be handled very gently. It can even be somewhat, quote unquote, delayed temporarily, while a soul may need to rest or heal from intense trauma in physical life. But inevitably, the soul will be repaired to the point where it will then face its life review. But this will be done by the assistance of spirit guides, angelic teams, soul family. You will always have help. And when you are properly prepared, then you will be allowed to experience your life review so that you can learn the lessons and adopt the lessons to yourself so you can make decisions and choices for what you would like to do thereafter. So it doesn't mean it has to happen automatically immediately. Sometimes the soul may require a little bit of healing and rest in the afterlife before it can face the understanding of and the experiences of the life review. So it's always done in a way that will be to the most benefit of the soul.
Yes, that's good. This person's saying, we are God, consciousness, all that is. Ultimately, we are one. I understand this, yet I'm still a bit confused. If we are one, how do we also have individual souls, each with unique dreams, purposes, and missions? Our minds are also distinct. Can you elaborate on how we are both one and the individual?
This is obvious. In the same way that on Earth you may have people working together as a team and therefore have a team consciousness, a team goal, a team focus, and yet the team is made up of individuals who have their own life paths, their own desires, their own preferences, yet you have agreed to work together in a kind of a common direction. So this is not really mysterious. And again, it's not this or that, it's this and that. You are all one, but the way the one can express itself as individual souls. And individual souls, each having their own life path, enhance the ability of the one to perceive and experience itself from all these different perspectives. So just because you are individual souls doesn't mean that you're not also one. And just because you're all one doesn't mean you can't experience yourself as the one, as individual perspectives and individual souls. That's all a soul is a different perspective the one has of itself. So there are an infinite number of perspectives that the one can have, that all that is can have of itself. And each and every one of those perspectives is a conscious being, a conscious soul. That's simply the way it works because everything is consciousness. So a perspective of all that is actually equates to an autonomous individual soul. That's what you are, a perspective that all that is has of itself. And yet it doesn't take away from your autonomy because every perspective that all that is has equates to an autonomous conscious being.
Because everything has consciousness, right?
Yes, yes. Everything is consciousness.
Yes, right. Okay, since physical reality is a reflection of our vibration, what is something most humans misunderstand about how this mirroring effect actually works? And if we are unaware of the specific beliefs creating an undesired reflection, what is the most effective way to uncover and shift them?
Well, if you have what you are perceiving as an undesired reflection, of course, depending on whether you're negatively judging the reflection or whether it's something truly out of alignment with who you are, of course, is the first question you ask yourself. The idea, again, is self-investigation. If it is truly not your preference and feels uncompatible and undesired, again, you would have to ask, by understanding how things work, what are you getting out of having this reflection? What are you learning from this reflection? How can it help you move in a different direction? So you still have to know it's there for a reason, as we have said. There are no accidents. So if it's there for a reason. What is it trying to show you? What are you learning from it? What are you holding on to that you think you need that maybe you don't need? So again, it requires deep self-investigation to find out why you would hold on to something you don't prefer, because you will always do so because you believe it benefits you. You have to understand the motivational mechanism and how it works. But that will be the beginning of the dialogue, the internal dialogue, that will help you understand why you're getting the reflection that you're getting, or perhaps why you're judging the reflection negatively that you're getting instead of using it to your advantage, since there is always a reason why everything is there.
Okay. And if physical reality is an illusion reflecting our beliefs, what belief structures create life-threatening allergic reactions, and how can one deprogram that matrix without dying in the process?
Of course, again, there may be many different reasons, as there are different people, for having allergic reactions to things. One of the most general reflections is self-rejection, and therefore that being represented by the idea of the nature that surrounds you or you find yourself in. So it has to be something that perhaps for most people needs an investigation into what parts of yourself are you rejecting. Have you learned to reject? Have you learned to judge negatively so that you don't, quote unquote, belong, so that you don't fit in, and therefore are rejected allergically by nature? Now, it can be something different as well. But again, for most people, it has to do with issues of self-rejection.
Okay, thank you. How should this person handle a behavioral secret that they have kept from their family due to differing beliefs? They have no negative feelings about their choice, and they don't intend to change them, but also know that sharing would cause their parents and their family heartbreak.
Pay attention to what we have already said and described about the idea of consequential secrets. The idea is not necessarily to reveal something, but to simply stop the behavior if it is something that, if revealed, would have detrimental effects on others, not because of their belief system according to your belief system, but because you know it would actually break a trust or confidence or have detrimental effects from something that you have established. So what we are saying is it's not about the revealing of certain secrets that are simply representative of your personal preference that are correct for you. You don't have to reveal anything that is your personal preference that's correct for how you wish to be as a person, if you know that it might be something that will upset others. Because then the idea is that this is simply in the domain of others to not necessarily choose to be upset by the choices you're making to be your true self, if that's what's happening. So we're not talking about the revealing of personal preferences that someone else might find upsetting. We are simply talking about the idea that if you're holding on to a secret that represents a behavior that you know, if revealed, would be the idea of dismantling the trust that exists between you because of what you have established with them, having to do with the circumstance and situation that you may be going against. It's about just stopping the behavior so that you don't have the secret anymore. So that if someone asks you, is this happening? Are you doing this? You can honestly say no.
And this person is saying that if everything is synchronistic and they attract the perfect lessons that they need to learn, does it make sense to, for example, wear a helmet on a motorcycle or have insurance? If they're positive, and then every experience, every disease, every injury is welcomed as a beautiful opportunity for growth. Do you still protect yourself? And is there even anything like protection, as I cannot protect myself from my own reflection anyway?
This is a person who is not getting the point that is existing even within their own question. Of course you protect yourself. The idea of asking, do I need to protect myself by wearing a helmet if I ride a motorcycle, is the result of a lesson you have learned. So the idea is not to avoid those obvious things that can protect you. Stay grounded in this, stay balanced in this, and understand that the whole idea, perhaps in your society, of wearing a helmet or having insurance are the results of learning lessons to protect yourself. It's not about trying to avoid the obvious. It's not about trying to be so spiritual that I don't need to do these things. It's about understanding how things work in your reality and learning the lesson. Of course, wearing a helmet will protect you because that is the lesson you learn if you fall down and injure your head without a helmet. So the things that you're talking about avoiding are actually the lessons you need to learn in a typical physical reality.
That's really a great understanding, you know?
Yes.
Um,
Don't be so spiritual that you forget that following the lessons of physical reality is just as spiritual as anything.
Now, this questioner is saying that her boyfriend completely refuses to believe anything that has to do with souls, UFOs, ETs. Did he and other people who think like him choose the experience of being closed-minded about these topics before incarnating on Earth? And if not, is there a way to help them wake up?
There may not be. Yes, it is a situational choice of the spirit to know that they are going into a reality where things like spirit, UFOs, ETs, the expansion of consciousness are going to become part and parcel of the expansion of humanity in this particular time frame, in this day and age. Therefore, going into the idea that they have fear about these things and refuse to acknowledge that they could be possibilities is part of their particular choices and lessons that they have chosen to learn. They may not learn it. It may be their life path to not open up to these things, but that's all right. Again, It may simply be an opportunity for them to realize that these things do exist. They're simply afraid of changing their entire worldview paradigm at this particular point because they have a belief system that says they cannot handle it or that everything would come crashing down. There's really no way to allow them to wake up to the fact that these things exist other than gentle conversation, gentle exploration, if they're willing to be exposed to it. But again, it's not necessarily your job to convince them of these things because you don't know their life path. Their life path may be to deny these things until a certain point where they will wake themselves up by putting themselves in a circumstance that is undeniable. But we'll see if that's what they have chosen. There's no way to assume that that's what they have chosen.
Now, this questioner is asking if you could clarify what you mean about a theme for this life. Do you mean what passion we choose to follow, what our main purpose is in coming here? Or do you mean what shadow aspects of our character are we going to deal with in this lifetime?
Both. It has to do, your theme, with both the passions that are representative of who you are and the letting go of the shadow side that represents who you are not. So this is why we say the greatest challenges that occur in your life are usually representative of your themes, both positive and negative. So it has to do both with being true to yourself and acting on your passion, and at the same time letting go of the things that are not who you really are, letting go of the fear-based beliefs. So it's both.
Okay. And this individual has these really interesting synchronicities. They frequently notice plumbing-related signs, billboards for plumbing, trucks and vans advertising plumbing, and even times when they searched for restaurants on Yelp and they still only get plumbing services to appear. What is the synchronicity of plumbing trying to convey? Could my higher self, guides, or angels be sending me a message? And if so, what might that message be?
You might have some pipes that need to be unclogged. So it might be a way of saying you need to clear out your system perhaps both energetically and even physically. It might have things to do with your diet. It might have things to do with your health. It might have things to do simply with belief systems that you need to let go of to clean out your pipes, so to speak.
Great. Could you help this person bring more understanding to the concept of money? For them, it feels very abstract. When they receive other forms of abundance, money seems more complicated for them to receive. And they experience a paradox where personally they don't need money, but at the same time they need it to pay off debts, live comfortably, and be financially independent.
All right, well, this is the opposite of what is typical for many people in the sense that most are focused on money at the expense of the other forms of abundance, whereas this person is expressing the opposite. They're okay with all the other forms of abundance, but they have issues around money. And therefore, they're not actually allowing money to be equal to the other forms in much the same way, but in the opposite sense that most people are understanding that they have a focus on money, but are not allowing the other forms of abundance to be equal to money. In this case, this person is not allowing money to be equal to the other forms of abundance. So they're going about it in the opposite way from most people. They have to allow money to be just as valid, just as equal, just as easily attracted when necessary as any other form of abundance that they find they are easily able to attract. So it's about getting into an understanding of why they may have a specific relationship with that particular form or expression of exchange or abundance on your planet that somehow makes it stand out more differently than any other form of abundance that we've talked about that they may find more ease with.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And this person is saying they're passionate about self-expression, self-exploration, personal development, and growth. And reading and discovering new knowledge like what you offer is something they truly love. And this journey has been their way of understanding why they've felt so unhappy for so long. Thinking about my path, I realize I'm passionate about sharing what I learn with others. I want to start coaching to help people discover themselves and break free from feeling stuck. But what holds them back is this feeling that despite all the coaching and permission slips they've encountered, they still feel stuck and haven't found lasting joy. How can they support the idea of coaching when it hasn't fully worked for themselves?
You will learn what you need by actually taking the action of coaching. You learn by doing, you learn by experience. You will grow. You will gain insights, but you have to start the actions. This is of paramount importance and why we say you have to act on your passion. It's the action, the physical action that will bring you more information, bring you understanding, bring you inspiration, bring you what you need to help others as well. So you have to start taking the action. If you don't have the actions, you're not going to gain more experience. You're not going to gain more knowledge. You're not going to gain more ability to help others if you don't help yourself by actually taking the actions to help others too. That's how you learn. You help them, you help yourself.
Is feeling stuck also a form of procrastination?
It can be. So again, it may be, oh, I'm not worthy yet. I'm not capable of sharing anything yet. It may be self-judgment. It may be many things. And therefore, you are not taking the actions. You are waiting. You are procrastinating, using it as an excuse because you don't think that what you have to give already is worthwhile. So yes, it can be a form of procrastination.
And so the idea of taking action in some form in that direction can eventually help you break through whatever barriers to understanding your
Yes.
issue is.
This is why we sometimes say if you feel stuck, go and volunteer to help people in some way, shape, or form other than what you would typically do. It will get you out of your head. It will get you out of yourself in a good way. You will start to learn things and then perhaps can transfer those lessons by volunteering for something other than what you would typically do that will then be transferable to what it is you are truly passionate about. So one way or another, the actions you take to help others in some situation, whether immediately representative of your passion or not, can unstick you by putting you in an unexpected situation where you're being of assistance and being of help to others. It can transfer to what you actually ultimately would prefer and are passionate about doing. Just take the action. That's the most important thing. So if you can't take the action in the direction of what you know you're passionate is about, go and volunteer for something unexpected, helping people, feeding people, clothing people, reading to people, building houses for people, whatever it takes, volunteer to help, and you will find yourself getting unstuck not only in the idea of the actions you take in your volunteer work, but also getting unstuck in the direction of your passion as well.
And does the idea of chaos, when it arises in physical reality, also provide an opportunity to be unstuck?
It can, because it turns everything upside down, everything is unexpected. And when everything is unexpected, then all bets are off, as you say. That means anything could happen, and you can take advantage of that stream. You can take advantage of that momentum. Anything can happen, including the things that are representative of you acting on your passion. So, by all means, you can take advantage of things loosening up in a positive way. And that's again the importance of staying in a positive state so that no matter what happens and no matter how chaotic something may seem, you will get the advantage of using chaos to your benefit because now all bets are off and anything can happen to your advantage.
And in line with that, that idea of history repeating itself, and like you were saying about protection, things we've learned,
Yes.
how does that factor into the idea of things being chaotic and still allowing for the idea of learning from history?
History, as you say, repeating itself is simply another way of saying you're always given another chance to change things in a way that you would prefer to. If you haven't learned the lessons will always come back until you no longer need them. So when you decide to use the repetitions in your history, the cycles in your history, to actually learn the lessons of how to do things differently, this is what we were talking about before, about the pendulum swing to the extremes. Until you learn the lesson to stay balanced in the center, the same lessons will always come back. The same opportunities to learn the lessons will always come back. Earth is a planet of cycles, and this is one of the cycles. You're always given another opportunity to learn the lesson. When you learn it, you end the cycle.
Thank you. This person is saying that they're saying, I am 55 years old and nearing retirement and believe I have followed my passion and synchronicity. Why am I discovering Bashar only now? What is my higher mind trying to tell me? What's next?
You are discovering this information now because now is the timing for it. Now is when you're ready for it. Now you can implement it, especially if you are retiring. Now you are free to implement whatever you wish that is representative of your passion, even more so. And therefore, there may be value in some of the information we are sharing with you to allow you the opportunity to do this now that you have timed the finding of this information with the idea of freeing up your time schedule.
Great. Is it possible for a human that has only ever known conditional love to experience and express and feel unconditional love for another or for themselves?
Of course it is. Again, the idea is you go through a process of removing the conditions on that love. It doesn't mean that you suddenly accept things that are not vibrationally compatible for yourself. It doesn't mean that you condone those things that you know you don't prefer. It simply means you have more compassion and understanding that someone is going through a process on their own path, just like you would for a child who hasn't learned everything yet. And therefore, you have compassion and love for them to see that they are on a path of learning, on a path that they have chosen to develop themselves, expand themselves, learn their lessons. And therefore, you can love them and support them in the doing of that thing without necessarily condoning the negative belief systems or fear-based actions that they may take on their journey. You can help them understand how to make better choices, more positive choices.
And the next question is, I've heard you say that negative beliefs will do everything in their power, including hiding themselves.
Yes.
Will you please say more about this?
Well, again, you have to understand that negative beliefs will use denial to make it seem as if there's nothing to look for. So they use denial because a person that is in denial is also in denial that they're in denial. And therefore, it forms kind of a double protective layer for the negative belief that you don't even think there's anything to go looking for. You don't even start exploring. So that's how it uses the idea of denial to hide itself by creating this sort of double barrier, this double shell. Because someone can recognize they may be in denial of something and refuse to face it, but then the negative belief can also make it seem as if there's nothing to look for, that they're in denial of being in denial. So it can be a very powerful filter to break through. But again, if you understand that this is how beliefs, and especially negative beliefs, work, then you can always go exploring to see if you are in fact in denial about being in denial about something.
And the next question is, if you've survived years of sexual abuse at a young age and want to help others heal, but the perpetrator denies everything, how can you be of service when you cannot openly share your own experience?
You can openly share your own experience. You don't necessarily have to name the perpetrator. You can simply use what was done as a general example in order to illustrate the points that you are making to help others. So you can use it as general examples of your experience without necessarily pointing a finger at a specific person who may be in denial of their actions.
And next question. How do I live a life where I am aware of the negative but only experience the positive? How does that work exactly? And what will it look like?
Again, you can be aware that there will always be an opportunity to choose the negative, but you have to get to a point where you realize it makes no sense to do so. You have to understand very deeply and very clearly and very precisely how things work, how you create your reality, and why you would ever create a reason to choose the negative idea, the fear-based idea. And again, remembering the formula and the fourth step of remaining in a positive state no matter what happens is what will allow you to transform any experience, even ones you don't prefer, ones that are out of alignment with who you choose to be. It'll allow you to transform them and get a benefit from them no matter what they are. So the idea is to, again, to understand how this all works and to use it precisely. And then you can recognize there will always be the opportunity to choose something negative, but it will simply no longer make any sense for you to do so. You will never react even to something that you don't prefer in a negative way. Remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference. So no one is saying that something may not manifest ever again that you don't prefer. That's not what we're saying. It doesn't mean those things can't manifest. It simply means, what are you going to do if it does? Are you going to stay in a positive state so you can get a benefit from it? Or are you going to react negatively to it as if something is wrong just because it manifested? You're always given an opportunity to learn a lesson from something. So don't go by what it is, go by what you do with what it is.
Perfect, because that just answered the next question. So I will move on.
All right.
Discernment, how can we best differentiate which information is coming from our physical mind and which is coming from our higher mind? It's not always clear.
Well, it depends on what kind of information you're talking about. You know, when you're honest with yourself, the difference between excitement and anxiety, whether it comes from your physical mind or your higher mind. So again, you just have to be discerning about, does the information, no matter where it's coming from, actually benefit you in some way, shape, or form? Or does it seek to limit and control you in a negative way? It doesn't matter where it comes from. Your own physical mind is capable of giving you information that's beneficial for you. You don't have to assume that the physical mind will always be trying to knock you down. So it doesn't really matter where it comes from, as long as you believe that the information, regardless of its source, is beneficial for your growth and learning lessons so you can advance and expand and move on.
And the next question is, do ETs possess universal communicators to interact with humans who speak different languages? In most ET encounters reported, the beings appear to speak the native language without the assistance of an electronic device. So what methods are they using to translate human language, or do most ET beings learn human languages at some points?
It's all of the above. There are cultures that have technology that allow them to have universal translators. A lot of ETs simply communicate telepathically and therefore need no device at all. And some ETs actually do learn human languages. So it just depends on the extraterrestrial and what they prefer to do or what they have access to. It can be any or all of the above, depending upon the species.
Pretty exciting.
All right, if you say so.
um, do spirits ever try to do things and get attention of the living through things like starting, this person is saying, for example, could my dead mother, arrange to have a song start playing on the radio when I walk into a store?
Absolutely. Spirits will do things like this all the time to get the attention of the living. As we have often said, they will use what's already in your reality synchronistically in order to deliver messages most of the time, because that's the easiest way to do it, because the information is already in your reality. And it doesn't take much to cause a certain thing to happen, especially with electronics, that can then get your attention and make you think of them, to put you in touch with the fact that they may be sending you a message. So yes, spirit guides will do this quite often.
So the idea that some people may suffer from something like schizophrenia, where they are watching television and suddenly they believe the television is talking specifically to them, versus an individual who consciously makes the decision to shift into a different state where they can receive the information that's coming through the television, so to speak, in a personal way.
Yes,
And
one can be an out of balanced mental state, the other can be a balanced mental state.
so if you find something like that happening where you're getting communication through something like television or radio, the idea is to remain in a positive state and recognize that it may be a momentary communication per se, but
Yes.
not in a way that is unhealthy in that sense.
Yes, of course. It usually won't be that someone thinks that the television character is actually speaking to them directly, as if they were an autonomous being. It will be more like the person recognizes that something in what is being transmitted has personal meaning for them, and that the timing of the delivery of that has something to do beyond the idea of what's actually playing on the television. The characters on the television don't become the primary style of communication. It's simply something that is used from a being that is not necessarily displayed on the television.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yes.
Now, as open contact progresses and humanity evolves, will we someday be able to connect with people in spirit as easily as it is for us to call someone who's still alive on the telephone?
Yes. We do it all the time in my society.
Can we have Zoom calls with the deceased?
Well, you don't need the Zoom to do it. Eventually, you'll be able to simply perceive them and communicate with them, again, on a telepathic level.
And what's the time frame for that to happen?
Depends on the individual. Obviously, there are individuals who can do that now. You usually refer to them as sensitive or psychics. But for the majority of your society to have this ability, probably within the next 100 of your years.
Very interesting. And when we leave physical Earth, do we retain only our level of consciousness after death? What happens to the mind? No book or source seems to explain what occurs with the mind after death.
Well, the physical mind is the product of belief systems that are no longer relevant when you're a spirit, but you retain the experience that the physical mind had in much the same way that you retain memories of childhood, even though you're no longer a child. So the idea is the experience you had as a physical being with a physical mind is always retained as a part of you. It will always be a part of you when you go back into spirit, because you need to learn from it. You need to add it to the overall information that helps you make decisions as to what to do next. So you will never lose the experience or the memories of the experience, so to speak, but you will not necessarily have a physical mind in the same way that is determined by the belief systems that create the physical mind. You will be above and beyond that. You will have your own identity. You will recognize yourself, but in a different way.
And is it possible to keep shifting into realities where a loved one is alive, even though they're dead in other realities?
It's a rare thing and usually not necessary, because there are lessons to be had, especially in this day and age, about someone no longer physically being in your reality. I wouldn't say it's an impossibility, but it's an improbability for most people, because it's simply not the way most life paths are designed on your planet at this time.
And how do you distinguish between advanced virtual reality simulations and tapping directly into parallel realities? Does your civilization engage with virtual realities?
Well, yes, but at a certain point, there's absolutely no distinction or difference between what you may perceive as a virtual reality and a parallel reality, since the simulation idea, the holographic idea, is a projection of consciousness anyway from all of you. You're creating your own virtual reality every day. So ultimately, you get to a point where there really isn't much difference between the idea of a parallel reality and a virtual reality.
Okay, and this person is asking, they say they were on the timeline for the female to win the election, but and they had turned into joy and creativity. What happened? Now they're affected by a new administration in the timeline. And why is that? It feels like there is no glass wall between the person and the reality they're now experiencing, even though they don't prefer it.
Drop your expectations and insistences. This goes back to the first conversation we had about keeping in the state of being of what you prefer in the midst of perceiving the chaos, so you can be of assistance by maintaining the preferred vibration while the chaos is going along, because that's what's going to allow the momentum to ultimately bring the chaos back down to center. So it's not about being in the wrong reality. It's about staying in the preferred state that represents the outcome you would have preferred, and staying in that state will help with the idea ultimately of getting people to the point where they will ultimately tire of all the chaos, and then you can be of some assistance in helping bring that energy back toward the center instead of going to the other extreme.
And since the one is the all and the all are the one, does that mean that each one of us is exploring everything infinitely? We just are not aware of doing that as individuals.
Well, yes, of course, there are many different levels and aspects to your consciousness that are exploring everything simultaneously. But this idea, this level you call physical reality, and this individual personality, by definition, is exploring a particular life path that prevents you from experiencing a lot of the other things that the larger versions of you, so to speak, are also doing, because it's not relevant for the life path you wish to experience as a physical individual in this reality.
Next question about signs, synchronicities, numbers, and stuff. Are these kinds of things always messages from our guides or our higher self, or can they just be reflections of our own limiting belief and not so much guidance as reflections of our fears and limitations?
It can be either, but again, it depends upon what the symbols mean to you. You can use them in a positive or a negative way. You can say, I keep seeing this, and therefore it's reflective of the fact that I'm focusing on this particular negative belief. Or you can also say, I keep seeing this, and it's reflective of the fact that I'm focusing on a particular positive belief. It depends on how you use it. Synchronicity itself is relatively neutral. It depends on how you use it and what it means to you, what it reflects to you.
So the idea that you could get excited about any synchronicity is
Yes.
allows it to be a trigger for being in a positive state, because suddenly you recognize that everything is one, everything is orchestrated in some way.
Yes.
It-
And it brings your attention to what you need to pay attention to, whether positive or negative beliefs within yourself.
Now, this person is saying that they find themselves attached to their desires, following the excitement, but instead of trusting and releasing them, they attach to them, try to control them. As you know, this doesn't work very well for them. So, how can they reach new levels of trust and allow their self to surrender?
Well, again, you have to stop thinking that your physical mind knows what's best all the time. It doesn't. You have to understand that holding on to a particular outcome, insisting on a particular outcome, is a limitation on what could possibly happen that would be even better. So you have to give up the idea that your physical mind knows what the ideal outcome absolutely always should be. You have to let go and let yourself know that you're imposing limitations on yourself that you don't need to impose. Even though it may seem as if I'm controlling this to make sure it comes out to be the best, that's the opposite of what you're doing by insisting on a particular outcome. You're actually limiting yourself from experiencing what you could be experiencing. So when that finally sinks in, you'll stop doing it. Unless you really prefer to keep limiting yourself. That's okay, if that's your path. But I think you sound like you're tired of it.
You have said that the soul is driving the car and the ego has a wheel that is not connected to anything.
I didn't
You've
say
also
that. I didn't
okay.
say that.
All right. Well, then
Again,
this
the
question's
ego serves
probably
the
not very
purpose.
good.
The ego serves the purpose of allowing you to experience physical reality in a clear and precise way. But that's its job. It doesn't mean it's not connected to anything. It simply means it's not supposed to be steering the car to where you wish to go. It's just supposed to help you see where it is that the car has gone after you have steered it with the idea of acting on your passion, which is following the directions of your higher mind.
And this last sentence in their question was, you will discuss that you've said you will discover that you have been in control this whole time.
From the higher level, yes.
So that analogy of driving the car versus realizing that at another level you're in control. So it's not that you're in control per se at this level, except for how you respond to everything that happens.
Exactly. You are in control of your reactions and responses. You have the free will to decide how you will experience the idea of the life path that you have laid out from a higher level.
And this person had a huge awakening journey and found integration back into 3D world of Earth very difficult. They felt very lonely walking their path. Any advice for that?
The whole idea when you have a higher level vibrational experience is to bring that down to earth, not feel that you are missing something, but that you have been given a great and beautiful opportunity to know what that vibration can be like when you bring it down to earth through the actions of serving humanity by following your passion. So it's not there to make you feel alone. It's there to make you realize you are all one, and to bring that vibration and the opportunity to experience that high vibration to others as well through the work that you do in service to humanity by acting on your passion.
Okay. And is life more like a single player or a multi-player game? Is free will also orchestrated?
Your free will is your free will in terms of the freedom to, within the overall agreement, the collective agreement, the freedom to be the individual that you chose to be, the freedom to learn the lessons that you chose to learn in whatever way you wish to, or ignoring them completely. So you have a great degree of freedom within the game, within the rules you have agreed to play, and there are individual levels of agreement as well as collective levels of agreement. So again, we use the analogy of a game of chess. You have agreed to a play by the rules of chess, but the strategy you use is up to your free will. The kind of pieces you use and what they're made of is up to your free will. But you have to follow the rules of chess, otherwise you're not playing by the rules of chess. You're playing a different game. So yes, there are collective agreements, but you have a great degree of freedom within that to be yourself in how you play the game. Play fast, play slow, play openly, play sneaky. It's up to you.
Um, Next question. Are we and our loved ones really all our own unique souls that continue to exist in spirit after death? Or is it just like waves disappearing back into the ocean, so to speak?
You all still exist. You always will still exist, even though you know you belong to a greater ocean. So the drops in the ocean never disappear, even though they know that they are drops in the ocean. They are still drops. Remember, it's this and that, not this or that, not one or the other. It's both.
And can a place where you live in not want you there anymore?
No, you can make it seem as if it doesn't want you by amping your vibes to the point where you color the vibration of the location to push you out of it because you're the one that doesn't want to be there anymore. And you're simply projecting that on the location to make it seem as if the location is pushing you out, but you're the one doing it. So a location can become vibrationally incompatible to you, but that doesn't mean it wants you to leave. It's simply reflecting what you're giving off, that you want yourself to move.
And what role will Bashar and Darryl have post 2030? Will Darryl ever finally get to meet you face to face?
Yes, and that's all we will say about that at this time.
Okay. And how old are you for this particular transmission?
Somewhere between 137 and 157, depending upon the question.
And do you stay in your ship above Sedona, or do you go back and forth to Essassani, or are you able to be in two places at once?
It's not so much being in two places at once, but I'm able to go back and forth without you necessarily noticing because time for me is not what it is for you.
And you never sleep, right?
No,
But you rest.
we can rest,
Or when you're in a state of repose, is that a state of resting?
kind of, or a state of activity in a different way, on a different level.
So that is one piece of furniture that we would see in spaceships, chairs.
When they are necessary, they will extrude from the floor. When they're no longer necessary, they will dissolve back into the floor or the wall, at least in our ships.
And your demeanor translates through the channel in tone of voice, facial expressions, and physical gestures. However, when you laugh, your laughter does not translate through the channel, and you will tell us one moment we are laughing. I'm just curious about why your laughter does not translate through the channel. Can you explain?
Yes, we have explained this before. Perhaps you have missed it. But a full body laugh will disconnect us from the channel because the channel will then withdraw within himself because laughter is very centralizing. And therefore, in a sense, it will wake the channel up.
Do members of your species ever get the giggles?
We laugh a lot.
And are we your favorite laughter stimulator?
Certainly, you are one of them.
What other things do you encounter that
That's
make you laugh?
enough for now.
Okay. Um, how are the hybrid children birthed? Are they physically carried like human fetuses? And how is the human DNA connected to create hybrid children?
I believe that many of you already understand that sometimes the fetus can be carried for a small length of time by the human female and then removed and placed in what you might call a maturation chamber, taken to full term from DNA that was collected and harvested in what you typically refer to as the abduction phenomenology.
And will some forces of nature change on planet Earth upon open contact? For example, will the regions of the poles become less magnetic, or will gravity even become lighter?
These things have absolutely nothing at all to do with open contact. No.
Okay, and um, one second here. seem to want to move. Can you elaborate more on the hive mind spectrum that different civilizations choose? Like, what is the difference in a negative hive mind spectrum that the Greys adopted from a positive hive mind spectrum where we are headed towards?
Who says that the Greys are exhibiting a negative hive mind? This is a
Well,
misunderstanding. If you mean that they adopted the idea of the hive mind because of certain other negative activities, and therefore the hive mind is what they needed to do to save themselves, that's a different issue if that's what you mean. We will
and
not
is
necessarily address further details of this right now. It will go into too lengthy of an explanation.
okay. And is there such a thing as star seeds?
Yes, of course, but star seeds are simply each and every single one of you who understands that you are here by choice participating in the evolution of humanity. So you're all star seeds in that context.
Okay. And some teachings talk about how this world is totally neutral or doesn't have inherent meaning, and that we are the ones that give it meaning with our thoughts and beliefs. But you've also seen things in this world that have their own properties too, like some foods seem to be healthy, some substances seem to do certain things, etc. Can you help clarify this? Is everything neutral outside of our perception, or do things have their own vibrations and properties only?
When things seem to
Alone.
have their own built-in meanings, it's because of the collective agreement, so you don't have to think about it. It doesn't mean that it always works for every individual. There can be some exceptions depending on your life path. But those things that seem kind of automatically built in are simply usually the result of the collective agreement, so that you don't have to always think about it. So things that you have collectively said, well, this is generally a healthy thing to do, are simply put there by the collective. So again, you don't have to constantly reinforce that idea. You simply accept it as a given for most people on your planet. You also know that there can be exceptions depending upon what a person has chosen for their individual life path. So it just depends. But yes, it's all neutral to begin with, and the collective agreement may make some things seem to have built-in meaning, but that's just because of the collective agreement. They can be superseded by some people if that's part of their life path to do so.
Okay. And is there a cosmic battle going on between negative ETs and good ETs?
No,
Okay. And I guess I'll find the last question here. Um, this person is asking about time and progression. From what they understand, it can take hundreds, if not thousands, of years to progress from one density to the next. If we are all timeless beings, how is it that some beings like yourself have evolved so much farther than us? Is existence one endless loop that once we become one with Source, again we start all over?
it's not quite the way that you're depicting this. And again, remember, you experience time by definition in physical reality to experience growth and expansion in a certain way. And certain cycles can make things take a long time, depending upon the processes that are necessary, in which a group of individual souls has decided to band together to evolve. We have had a head start. We are a physical race that is artificial and therefore have been given a head start, which is why we are more advanced than you are. We didn't start from scratch, so to speak, in the way that our souls progress. But the idea in general is that, yes, you're timeless beings, but not in terms of physical beings. In physicality, you experience time, and therefore, in time, you experience evolution, and therefore, you experience cycles and timing and things like that. You are only timeless when you're non-physical.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for all this information. I hope everyone found it beneficial and expansive, and we really appreciate it.
It is our passion and our pleasure and our deep appreciation and unconditional love to all of you. Allow yourselves now to move forward and become relaxed. Enjoy. Now we would ask that you all allow yourselves to breathe deeply, to let go of the cares of the day.